Hi, my name is Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I'm going to be talking, and I want to do a training today with you all about how to. Oh, I've got things popping up everywhere. Okay, about how to work through and eliminate tough symptoms of anxiety, depression, and or traumatic stress. A lot of people that I work with have a combination of all of them, and they all have the same root. And I specialize in resolving each of them, and I do it all in one same way. It's just these in my world. When I look at anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, they all have the same root issues, and the brain heals them and resolves them the same way. And so I don't necessarily feel like I need to differentiate those, but they do present differently. They do make you feel different. And there are differences with them. But ultimately, when it comes down, there's a particular brain function that's happening that really creates one or the other. It's the same one. It just chooses different survival strategies. And so when you learn how to work through symptoms of anxiety, you use those same tools for depression and for traumatic stress. You're helping the brain shift out of survival modes and modes of not healing, and where healing and eliminating symptoms is blocked. You're opening up the doors so that healing can happen. And I've been talking about that a lot. I'm looking for something because I want to lift this up a little bit higher. You should see my setup, guys, over here. Because since I've moved offices, it's just a little different. And then my computer, all the things, okay? But let's see. So I want to talk about this because I've been doing training videos for you so that you can take this stuff and start applying it, so that you can see what you got, because it is very simple to do, and sometimes that's a challenge because it's like we overthink it, like, am I doing it right, am I not? But really, if you follow my instructions in the video, it's really really simple. But there are other challenges that will pop up along the way, that where you need more advanced skills, and this is really one of those videos that I want to make for that, for those issues. But really, if you haven't watched the first training video and the second one, really watch those, because they're going to get you started, because it's really hard to work through deeper issues if you don't have the symptom elimination dance down. And it's not a dance, right? But it's like it's a two-step process, and it's attention and intervention. You're combining those together to help your brain. You're activating the prefrontal cortex in here, your thinking center, your inner healer, and you're also working with the survival center together. And holding these two together to get along and work, helps them to eliminate symptoms and to heal and solve problems and move through their actual healing process that is natural and native to them. But because of things that happen, which I talk about this in lots of videos, they can get out of sync and they can really block each other. And that's really where symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress are even created. And so we want to pull these two players together to get them to get along and do their symptom elimination process. Because and sometimes when the process is blocked, it can stay blocked an entire lifetime. And that is unfortunate, because they're so good at eliminating symptoms that it's just unfortunate. And we know this because we're like, why is this so hard for me? Why do I have so many symptoms? Why won't this go away? Because you're like, it's not that hard. And it's really not. It really isn't. But you've got to learn how to help these two do their thing and get along, make symptom elimination happen. Okay, and I teach that in the first training video. And basically, I teach pay attention to it and use an intervention. Now, there are lots of interventions that come naturally equipped with our body, but they're hard to use and they take a long time. Like crying. Crying's one that you can cry your way through a whole mental health disorder, but it's a lot of crying. And it's not really socially acceptable. You can't do it anywhere and everywhere. And it's a lot of energy. And so we can use some other interventions that are also native to your body, to really pick that up quite a bit. And so there, and walking is one, not the ones that I use. I don't use those ones. I use emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and energy medicine. That finger is easier to pick up. Anyway, and we take that and we'll help the attention that you're paying to be able to finish its work. This is your inner healer. This is the process this works through to get any of the work done. And the intervention is to work with your survival system to help it allow your whole system to get this work done. And so these are the two biggest players that really I teach people to work with. And these two players can clean up your entire brain, your entire mind, eliminate any symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress that are coming up. And I say that boldly and confidently because I love these two players, but also because when I am working with people, that's what I see happen. I have not run into a symptom that has not been able to be eliminated through that process. Now, I have had to use higher level of attention strategies. That is a real thing. And I'm going to teach you a little bit of that today. And you can try it out. Okay. You can do this. When I first was diagnosed with my anxiety disorder, number one, I was never going to therapy and I was already a therapist. So whatever. I was mad. Anyway, and I just stumbled along, found an intervention by accident, and I started developing attention skills. So if you're in a situation where you, for whatever reason, are not willing to or don't want to work with a coach or a therapist, these are things you can do yourself. You'll just need to take extra care of yourself and really take it slow. But there's no reason these symptoms can't be eliminated. And for others of you that are like, I want to be walked through this process with somebody, absolutely, we'll talk about that at the end as well. But so it's important for this conversation that the foundation of it is that you're understanding that I'm talking about attention and intervention, that I'm talking about eliminating symptoms using a powerful tool. I like the My Four. That's what I teach my clients, how to use those two, and then how to use those four, and then the attention strategies. Okay. And like I said, I have helped people eliminate flashbacks, internal conflict, ruminating, that excessive worrying, thinking that everyone's plotting to get them fired from their job. I have helped people eliminate relational challenges with the healthy boundaries. And a lot of if you can't set healthy boundaries, it's typically, it has to do with your survival system and trauma, anxiety, or depression. And so when boundary issues let us know, hey, there's some work here we need to do where our system's malfunctioning. And it's not functioning properly. We're setting the boundaries that we need to set, and usually that's found in this process. It's usually a survival strategy of have no boundaries or fight, or have all the boundaries, or that inflexibility, and that leads to unwellness, emotional unwellness, and really symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, right? And so I don't have any idea how I got there, but I was enjoying that, so I just flowed with it, and now I don't know how I got there. That happens once a video. So let's see. I'm going to do my little brain hookup exercise. This one right here, you might try it. It's one of those like twister things. I have my legs crossed too. It really helps with connecting the front and the back of the brain and eliminates symptoms of dyslexia. See, I still have them. Dyslexia. For a time. I haven't figured out how to completely eliminate that, but it's like it'll just take it right out of the picture. And I really like this one. I have lots of my clients do this and they love it too. So eliminate for a time. This one does. Anyway, so when we're talking about symptoms, okay, we're talking about all the symptoms. So people being stage fright, phobias, these have resolved those. The same process has resolved those. Panic attacks, absolutely. Panic attacks actually are one of the easiest things to work through. And phobias, those ones are super easy. Um, in the grand scheme of things, which is really wild because they're so big and in your face and so reactive. You would think it would be the opposite, but not necessarily. I have not found that to be true. And depression, waking up in the morning, being hit with anxiety, or waking up in the morning and feeling groggy and slow and heavy, and like you're literally wading through cement through your day. All of that stuff, that's survival function, and it resolves. And this process of attention and intervention has rocked that. So, and then, you've got your excessive worrying, you've got your need for excessive reassurance and self doubt, inner critic, all that stuff. This is the same process, the 1-2 combination, attention and intervention. Now, what we're talking about today is we're talking about working through and eliminating tough symptoms of anxiety, depression, and or traumatic stress. And by tough, I mean those ones that are persistent, that are difficult, and I've broken them down into 2 categories that we'll be talking about today. The ones that I want to talk about are the symptoms that are too painful, or not necessarily the symptoms that are too painful, but the root cause of the symptoms that is too painful. A lot of times when the root cause is too painful, people will stay up in the area of the symptom. And so, and they'll get results there, but you have to keep fighting the fires because you're not dealing with the root. And this is an okay strategy to begin with, but eventually we want to get in there. But because it's so incredibly painful, people really can't get in there. And so, that it prevents this from healing, because you got to give your inner healer a tour of this problem so that she can take notes, measure it, see what kind of strategies she's going to need to heal this. And it's like a whole thing in there. I don't know exactly how it happens, but you got to give her a tour of this. But you can't, there's too much pain that comes off of this event to get her in there. And if she touches it, the survival system goes off and you're blocked out. Maybe you'll dissociate, panic, you'll be waves of all kinds of emotion, and your brain basically teaches you that's not safe, don't even go there. And so a lot of times we have these things and we just put them over on a shelf somewhere, and you kind of block it off, and with the with the tape, mental tape that says caution, warning, danger, and you never go in there. We try not to go in there. But the deal is that to eliminate these symptoms that just keep firing up out of this thing, we really want to get in here. And I've been thinking about this video for a little while. And what came up for me was a story. It actually is a Bible story, which is kind of fun, coming up from the days of all those childhood stories books. And I think most of us can relate to that because we have been exposed to childhood stories. And so if this is not necessarily your religion, cool. And if it is, cool. But this is the story. The story of Jericho, right? It was this huge thing, and they had a wall, right? And they couldn't get in. And back in the day when people were doing all the warring things, and they walked around the city for 7 times, right? Playing all their instruments, whatever. And then the walls fell. Well, when tough situations like this, that strategy works really, really well. Because sometimes you can mark it off and you could put a wall around it mentally. It's a mental trick. You imagine it like it's a thing, but you never go in there because you've learned already that if you go in there, it will be too painful and you will get like waves of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress. You'll get shut down. It'll be no good. So we don't want to fight with that and push you in there and have all that happen and get your behind kicked by this. We want to eliminate this, not have you be tortured by this. And so what we'll do is there's lots of things you can do. EMDR teaches a strategy of container. You put things into a container. It's a container exercise. It's a visualization exercise where you're playing with your subconscious mind, and you take a container of whatever strength that you want. Some people use vaults. Some people use Tupperware, mental Tupperware. You know, you can get those pretty cheaply in your brain, and so they'll put it in there and put the lid on. Sometimes that works. Sometimes they're like, no way will that hold this. This is too massive for this. And then I'll have them pack them in things like mentally have them put it in a vault, or Hermione's bag, like the magic bag that's small, but you can put everything in there. I've had somebody use that. That was fun. But anyway, you want to tell your brain the story that we're packing this thing up and we're not going in there. Okay. And you can use your intervention with this. You can use emotional freedom techniques, right? You can tap on your points while you're doing this. And just imagine yourself putting it in there. I had a really cool teen client, and she actually went through the steps like with her hands, and she did it like that. And we did a ton of work like this together. And I just had a great time watching her and her imagination. And our imagination, it's just, anyway, our subconscious doesn't speak to us in words typically. Sometimes it does, but it really loves stories. And it really gets along really well with that. So you can send it some commands, tell it what to do just by telling it some stories. And so it'll do that for you. And that's called the container exercise. So if you can get good at putting things in containers, you're rocking. You can. I like to think of it as putting them in there like a shoebox with the label on it, and you just know where it is. And your brain is like, oh, I know it. Like, I love that. And it'll like, it'll help you organize this. But anyways, when we have it in a container like that, we can really start to just work with it in the container. You can start sending healing energy in there, right? Because you're telling stories. You're working with your subconscious mind. You're telling it that you want it to do the healing work. And so you're imagining it, you're envisioning it, or you're sensing into that. You're using whatever technology you got available here, and you're tapping with it. Or you're doing your eye movement with it, or you're doing please don't use eye movement if you're not trained and if you don't have any other skills, and if you're doing it yourself. But if you do have skills, use your eye movements. You can use some energy medicine interventions. But you really want to pay attention to the container, and even just paying attention to the container is far enough away that you don't get sucked into the painful problem. Right? And it still keeps you on the outside of it. And really, you want to keep working on this outside layer over and over and over again. If you had something incredibly painful, like a violation, or an injury, or you've seen something that was horrible that you cannot bring into mind, this is a great exercise for that. And you can just walk around it, and you tell yourself, I'm never going in. If some of these things have a very strong sucking power, and they will suck us in. If that's the case, then perhaps you need another container. Put that container into another container. Or maybe you need to imagine a glass ceiling around you, a glass wall around you, that you're in here and that container is out there. And you figure out what your brain really likes here, and what your brain will tolerate, and how close can you get to the pain, how far away do you need to stay from the pain, and really like find your place. You want to be where you're safe, where you're not feeling the suck, where you're not feeling the gravitational pull of the pain in the box. And you're protected and you're outside. And really that's enough. And you can just do that. And you just walk around it. Now, sometimes you're walking around this thing one lap every day. Sometimes you're doing one lap every week. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The pace is up to you, and the pace has to be, you have to find it for yourself. You have to find it for how does that work for you. And nobody's pace has to be the same. And guess what? If you are doing the once a week plan, I'm going to tell you right now, you have plenty of other emotional work to do. So it's symptom elimination work to do. So that will keep you plenty busy while your brain is working on that at the speed that is right for you. So don't be afraid to start a big project and stay far away from it and walk around it. And now I don't know, like I'm going to tell you right now, it's really not about 7 times. I just like the story that, the 7 times around the walls of Jericho situation. But it's really however many times your challenge needs. And you'll know it because what happens is as you start walking around, sometimes what happens is that what happens is there's enough desensitization work that happens on the outside, and it becomes less painful on the inside. And you'll start to notice yourself being curious, like, I wonder what happens if I were to just peek in or step a little closer, and that's letting you know that there's been enough work done that you're not as afraid of it. And your brain has processed a lot of the fear and pulled the fear through. And that's really powerful because we don't want you to be afraid of anything in your brain, anything that has ever happened, right? I mean, we just don't want that. And brains can really work through that stuff so that when you're living now, you don't have to be living in terror of all those things. And that's a big statement. Feel free not to believe me or to feel like you have the exception. And I'm going to let you have that because who knows, you could be right. But what I have found is I've worked with a lot of trauma, and this is just what I've seen brains do. So sometimes people feel like I just want to go in there and do the work. The attention intervention. I would interpret that as the walls have come down and it's time to go in and handle the business in there. Sometimes the walls remain intact, but the subconscious or whatever happens is that the next thing you know, into the awareness is a piece of it. And it's like this, it's a painful piece, but it's not the whole thing. And it's just the right amount. And the brain kind of does this. Like the brain's in there like, can she handle this? Can she not handle this? What if I tell, and so it's helping you in this. If you're paying attention to it, it'll help you decide what you're ready for. And it's not going to give you more than you can handle typically. There are always exceptions, and that's why we do this work, to be very careful because we don't want one of those exceptions. And so, but a lot of times when you get this thing, you can tell because you'll feel either horrible and we need to grab it back up, throw it back in the container, close that thing, and start using an intervention for calming. And there are lots for that. This one's just the easiest one for me to talk about with you now. So, that's one of the things. Or sometimes a piece comes out and there's curiosity about it. If you have curiosity, your inner healer is engaged fully and she's good. If you have terror coming out, your inner healer has not even arrived to the scene, or she didn't get there fast and your survival system did, and it said no, and all the emotions, the survival, run, flee, all that stuff is happening there. And so you're just feeling this. You're feeling this. Is it safe to work on? Is it not safe to work on? Listen to yourself. Okay? And if it's safe to work on because you can get that curiosity in there, then that's a great time to go ahead and start tapping and using your intervention, whatever intervention you're using. Just on that one little piece. And then you can leave the whole city of Jericho or your big trauma, leave that alone and just work on this one little piece and make sure it gets all the way through the healing pathways. You might have to break this one up into little pieces and get it through, but you want to get it through. Okay? And pretty soon that one resolves. Well, what happens now to the trauma is that it looks differently and it will reorganize itself differently. And now it's time to look on the outside and say what's going on with it. How do I feel about that? Some people will feel like, I think I could take the whole thing on. And some people will just be like, I'm just going to keep walking around it. And that's a great strategy. Both. Because we're in this to win it. We're not in this for glory or like, I ran right into it. No, that's not what we're doing this for. We're trying to eliminate symptoms. And so if you're walking around it, likely the same thing's going to happen. Either you'll desensitize the whole thing that way, or another piece will pop out and you're going to work on that one piece. And you're going to go back and find it and you're going to work around it again. And pretty soon, voila, done. And so, and once that whole thing gets in there, it's like you have this big pile of pain on some, like, in your brain, on some like fertile soil, but you couldn't use the soil because the pain was there. And now that the pain is gone, it's like, ooh, what can we put there? What will we grow? Or people will say, oh my gosh, this is the perfect place for me to build my business on. Or this is the perfect place for me to bring my kids and we'll picnic right here. I mean, I'm making stuff up, but it's like you have parts of your brain that you can actually use however you want to, and not just have to use every time you accidentally bump into it. You have to deal with trauma, anxiety, depression, symptoms that send you out into hours of having to cope. Now you can run around through there and you're not getting that same response, and you can actually do things in that part of your brain where there used to be massive amounts of pain. And that is awesome because now we get to build. So that's one strategy to work through tough emotion, tough symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. And so if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask them now. And I want to talk about one other one. And this tough symptom is one that is, the threads are everywhere. Like, let's say it's unworthiness, right? So unworthiness is a thing, right? It's like this, but it's like spread out everywhere. It'll show up everywhere in your life. And it may have had one root cause, or it may have had several others. We don't know, but it's also, even if we got it, it's still showing up in all these other different places, right? And so that makes it challenging because it's not just take it out and you're done. And so this one is, I didn't think about this one as much as the other one. So work with me here as I explain this one. This one is, and I think worthiness tends to be a human challenge that shows up in our messaging, in our TV, in our experience relationships, in so many aspects. And so I think it's something that not only do we need to do some deep healing work with this one, but we also need great hygiene. We need great emotional boundaries. We need great critical thinking about it. And we need to just be on the lookout because it's really sneaky, because it really can come in stories, and we're being told stories of our unworthiness and other people's unworthiness, and we can really get caught up with that. So for this one, the thing is really just to really resolve it wherever it's popping up. And so if you have a moment where you're feeling unworthy, you really want to, or you have a situation, I think I'll explain it like this. If going to, let's say you're going to, let me think of something. I'll use an example from my own life, right? I'm going to a meeting, let's just say, of a bunch of like world-class coaches, like the best, coolest coaches in the world are there. And let's say I know I'm going to this. And well, I could have lots of feelings of unworthiness come at this. Like this one thing, this is a target. I would call this a target. It's something that's going to happen. And I'm going to have emotional reactions to it. I'm going to be excited or sad or mad or feel unworthy or have flashbacks to the last time. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm going to pay attention to it, and I'm going to notice how I'm reacting. Okay. Now I'm noticing that I feel a bit of shame. Maybe I feel a little bit of unworthiness, right? And maybe I feel like I want to hide. Maybe I don't want to go. Maybe I want to go. Maybe they're going to, and then, so if I can find that thread of, there's lots of threads here you can grab hold of and start pulling them through the healing pathways. But if I'm looking for this unworthiness thing and it's high on my list of to-dos, I'm going to grab that one right here. This thread of I'm not worthy. And this is usually, there's lots of shame and beliefs in this one. So you're pulling this one through, you're pulling it through, right? And you're doing your attention and intervention. Now I'm tapping at this while I'm watching this thing, and I'm thinking about the things that they're going to say, right? Let's blow this one up here a little bit. And what if I do something that is unacceptable and I don't know that I do it? You know, what if I say something that I regret and I have to play it out 10 times? Now I'm just tapping because I'm talking about what I'm scared of, right? Let's just pretend. So you've got your event, and then you've got all the feelings of unworthiness that are coming out, right? And so the thing here is to keep paying attention to the event and keep processing all the unworthiness that you're feeling about it. And processing, I mean attention and intervention. And what will happen is pretty soon you will have the event and you will not have the unworthiness feeling there, right? But that process of working through an event of an emotional response like unworthiness and shame, and then the beliefs that come along with one target, really helps build your brain's ability to process unworthiness, number one. Number two, you start to feel what your feelings of unworthiness feel like. So you're learning yourself, and you're learning what your body and your mind and your thoughts are trying to communicate to you, because they do not speak your same language. They're not always going to say, hey, this is unworthiness. You're going to feel it in your body. You're going to think it, and you're going to start catching, oh, that's a shame thought. And you're going to learn how your shame feels. So you're going to get to know this about yourself. All right. And you're working that out. Now, this thing you might notice it coming up somewhere else, and you're just going to work through it the same way. You're going to work through it the same way. Maybe now you're dropping your kids off at a play date, and their house is nicer than yours, or they got that car that you wanted to get, or that's like you perceive is way out of your league. Maybe it's on your vision board, but it's not yours yet. And so you see it, and maybe you start to feel similar feelings, and you feel all these things, but the one that stands out to you, because you already are learning about this emotion and how your body responds to it, is unworthiness. And you're just like, here it goes. Process that too. Now, as you're finding this anywhere that it's coming up, you're getting a deeper and deeper and deeper understanding of what's going on in your inner world. And so even though what makes unworthiness tough is that it's very abstract. It's really hard to grab hold of. It's not like an event that happened, right? Events that happened, those ones are easier in some ways. But unworthiness can be very vague, and they will frequently lead back to an event that happened, but it's hard sometimes to get there. And so if that's the case, follow all the roads in, and pretty soon your brain will have gathered up enough information about this unworthiness thing that's like, I think I know where it is. And then it will take you there, and then you do the attention and intervention when you get there. And then you're clearing out unworthiness at the root. And that makes the whole hygiene issue easier, because now as you're going out in the world, you recognize in shame. You like, oh man, I picked up a bag of shame while I was out there. Let me get rid of that. And you do the attention and intervention. But I think one of the big pieces in all this stuff, and I'm shifting a little bit, but if you have questions about that process, let me know. But the big deal here is just that I think that we often pick up all this baggage and we tolerate it. And we just think this is how life is supposed to be. And, well, I just feel so much shame. Oh, I'm just a shame. I'm just a big ball of shame. Or we just start washing it off, moving it out of the way, making it unimportant. And pretty soon we've got piles and piles and piles of it. And we've become disconnected and desensitized to it, so we can't even recognize it anymore. And we tolerate it. And that's one of the things about eliminating, working through and eliminating tough symptoms, is that the very first thing that you need here is that you're not going to tolerate that. You're not going to tolerate your brain going wonko and causing you problems. Just no. No. I see you, and I may not be able to do something right now, but no, I'm not standing for this. And as you build your skills, you will be able to work through them faster and faster and faster, and more independently, so you really can keep yourself well. And you can have a low tolerance for symptoms. And that's counter to some of the teachings, like we need to have a big tolerance for this stuff. And I think that is really helpful in some situations. But at the same time, if it keeps you complacent, if it keeps you suffering longer, when you could just get in there and do some attention and intervention, no. And let me tell you that, to resolve something like a painful, some event that's too painful, okay, if you have to be on the plan of once a week, you're working on it from afar. Maybe you've got in your mind, you got it set up and you're throwing like healing bombs in there from a distance, and you can only throw in one bomb every week. Okay, perhaps that might take you 2 months to work through, right? But there are most of these traumatic issues, you work through them in an hour, right? That's a very short time frame. And some of my clients will work through them in 2 hours. Some of them will work through it in 30 minutes. Because your brains are incredibly fast. They're electrical by nature. and they're moving around furniture in your brain at electric speed. And so it's like if they need to go run down there and take the dump truck and put all the pain in there and take it out and throw it out into the abyss of I don't know where it goes, but it eliminates the pain, then great, because now this work is done. And that happens so fast. And so there's really no reason to tolerate these symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And that leads me to my next thing, is that some of these symptoms will be so challenging, overwhelming, painful, flooding, beastly, horrific, terrible, and whatnot, that you will need to work at it for a while. And you'll have to search for it in some dark places. And then some places that are totally light and it just doesn't care and it's just right there doing all the things. So in those situations, I think what's really, really, really needed is just that determination that this is my house, this is my brain, and I don't care how long this takes, you and we're going to resolve this. You symptom and me, you trauma and me, we're resolving this. Because whether you have to take it little by little, piece by tiny itty bitty piece, or you can take it by big chunks, it doesn't matter. The thing that matters is are you gonna do the work? And are you gonna take your brain back? Are you gonna take that stand? Are you gonna set that intention that it's me, this is my house, and that is not supposed to be there? That big fat panic attack is not supposed to be there. And I'm gonna do what it takes to resolve you. And and in the beginning, what I find is that that's not how my clients feel about it. And that's not how I felt about it in the beginning either. And so, but what I found is I feel about that way now. I totally feel that way now. Let's rock. And so sometimes with my clients, what happens is that I am happy to help them start the process. And I'm like, tag me. I will help you with that one thing. We'll load up that issue and I will take the lead and help them move this. But all of a sudden, as they notice that this is working and that it's less intense and that it's easier to look at and it feels easier and it looks more ridiculous and it looks doable, and all of a sudden, as they notice that is not scaring them anymore, and that their panic attacks are reducing, all of a sudden they're like, I think I could do this. Let me try, and now we're together in it, right? And I'm at their back. I like to be at the front in the beginning. Sometimes I've had clients be like, move, let's do this. Let me at this. And I'm like, go. And then sometimes I'm like right beside them and I'm like, let's do this, right? And so we've got our strategies and our interventions and we're deciding what area of their brain we're going to take back first. And then a lot of times, by the third week, by the fourth week, I'm at the back just cheering and we're talking strategy. And they're like, I got this. I'll be right back, and they go do their thing. And then we jump right back on, because that's how I run. The small group is run like that. We have a time of celebration where we're celebrating all the inner world transformations we're making. Then I answer any questions about their homework or what they're working on independently, or any, thoughts, what's going on, what questions they have. And then we break up to do the work. And so I just kind of come around. It's Zoom, right? So I don't come around anyway, but I'll work with one person while everybody else is doing their work, and we're looking at their symptoms, and then they're like, okay, got it. And they'll go off and do it. And then the next person is there. And so we're looking at it and looking at their symptoms, and we're doing it, and we're figuring out what we're going to do, the strategy. And then they're like, got it. And they go off. And so I just jump around and we're just strategizing, and they're become very, very, very independent. And what my goal is fostering in this is that sense of, let's rock, let's go symptom, let's do this. And really, 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 that feels amazing to have that, because with symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, they chase you around your brain. You try to hide from them, you try to avoid them, you spend so much time, and then you got to recover from them. And then it's such a time suck. I've talked with women, and we've counted up how much time they have to engage in avoiding triggers, dealing with anxiety symptoms running through their body, and then having to cope and come off of that trauma road and that pathway there where you're recovering. And we find that a lot of times people are spending 40 or more hours a week dealing with their anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. And that's a lot. And it's just like once you start to really build that skill up, you really can confront these things and stand your ground instead of having to run off. Sometimes you still want to run off because sometimes things that are really big happen, and that strategy is always available. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that, with the running off strategy. It's fleeing. It's legitimate skill. And you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. Especially in this work. And so, but when you can, but even if you flee and you run off, you really want to be like, okay, now what's my new strategy? I sunk for cover. I'm over here. What's my new strategy now? But we don't want to go and hide and say, I can't do it. I can't give up. We really, between time and interventions and the natural process of your brain's inner healer, that is a strategist, like an elite strategist, between all of that, this symptom's coming down. It's coming out of your life. And so that's really the other piece when you're dealing with tough symptoms or symptoms that are really persistent or they're spread everywhere or whatever. Really, it's just a matter of that determination to get this like this, to know that your brain's not supposed to be doing this, and it doesn't even want to be doing this. Your brain does not want to be any more dysfunctional than you want it to be. And it's stuck and it needs help to be brought back. And really being in that place where you can do that for yourself and you're willing to do that for yourself and you have the skills and the tools to do that for yourself, that is really, really powerful. And so that's really what I want to share with you in this training, because I know many of you are dealing with persistent and really painful issues that need to be moved out of the way so that you and resolved at the root so that you can really, really have that emotional wellness and the elimination of your symptoms so you can get your life back, take it in the direction that you want it to go, and really move into your next levels of expansion, because that's what happens is that we start growing and we start opening up and we start connecting better and we start connecting more deeply and we start feeling joy and bliss and health and wealth and all these things at really deeper and deeper levels, because the brain is free and it really got to do the work it wanted to do, and now it wants to explore. So and grow and build for you is really what it does. That's its job, is how can we help you be more of, how can I help me be more of me? That's the brain's whole job. And when it's not doing that, it's not happy with that either. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And and I'll keep talking here a little bit just in case there are any questions that want to come up, and you can ask those now. But I do want to say, so I want you to get what you need. I want you not to tolerate symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. You might tolerate them for right now, but get you a plan. Get you a plan. Get a plan. Get support. Get whatever you need to really take back your brain. Take back your emotional wellness. And be the hero of your brain. Like, your brain will thank you. Your brain will start to work for you. And really, there's quite a bit of this work to be doing. And so that's, and so it's really great to be able to follow a systematic plan, which really is what I offer in my 8-week program, is that I teach people tools, because you got to come with a tool. We got to help the survival system really do the work it wants to do. So you come with a tool, and then it's one thing to have a tool. Like, let's say I mail you a surgeon knife, and I say, okay, I want you to cut that tumor out of your leg, whatever. That would be messy, because it's like you might have one of the most powerful tools in the world, but you don't necessarily know how to do it. And you don't know how to do it in a way that's going to create health and not just make the problem worse, right? And so where this is much different and much better, and really, typically, if you follow the guidelines I set up, you're really not going to cut yourself up and make things even worse. But it's nice to have the support and to walk through this stuff and really do a thorough cleaning up of the brain, really help the brain do all the work it wants to do, and be able to look under the different layers and make sure you get everything. Right? That's really what my 8-week program is all about. That's what I walk people through. It's a small group program. It's for women, but I am really opening the doors to men at this time as well. If you are a man or you know a man who wants to do this work, I've had men go through the program before, and phenomenal. It's been great. Um, but it will be a separate men's program and a separate women's program. So because but this is really a place where I teach you the tools, and then I give you the exercises that will build your skill and resolve your and eliminate symptoms of anxiety at the same time, so that not only do you get your symptoms eliminated, but you also learn how to do this so that you can keep this with you for the rest of your life, and you can keep yourself well, and you can continue to do any work that you need to do and that you want to do. And also I really continue to provide support in my program. I offer ongoing monthly support for my graduates, and because I want them to master their tools, and I want to be continuing to celebrate them because I love that, and deepening their skills, moving on to a place of mastery of these skills. And that takes a little bit longer than 8 weeks, but liberating yourself from symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress when you're doing this work 2 hours per day. Yes, it's work time with Rachel. That's what I should call my program. Work time with Rachel. No, that's not as fun as Inner World Transformation. So I'm not going there. But this is really a program for people who want to do the work. This is not an information-based program. This is actually a work program and a transformational program. And so you're going to come away with a lot of brain knowledge and skill and things like that, but because you did it, not because we sat in a room and I lectured at you. No, there are books for that. So that's not what I'm here for. So I'm here, let's roll up the sleeves, dive in and scrub this thing down and really take your brain back. And so that's if you're interested in that, I have put the link to the details there in the header. I think that's what we'll call it. And if you're a man, then it's the same thing. And yeah, that's it from Rachel. And I don't see any questions. So, if you are interested in that, I encourage you to look at the program in more detail, see if it feels like the right fit for you. If you feel like a pulse of yes, this is what I have been looking for, then if that's the case, after you're done reading that, go ahead and send me a message. Send me a private message. I'll ask you a couple questions, make sure we're the right fit. I never want to this is not a money, like I just want your money and I don't care if you get any results. No, I love results. So if I feel like I can't get you to your goal, I will help you create a plan that will. And that's a better fit for you. And if I'm confident I can help you get where you're going, I will absolutely invite you into the program and offer you that spot and be like, let's do this. And we'll get started right away. Okay. So be well, everyone, and please let me know if you have any questions, any comments. You can go ahead and put them in the comments here, and we will see you another time. Take care.